Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
And a very good evening to you and very warm welcome to Newsline Prime. We're broadcasting live from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo. Cast your mind back to 2010, 2011. And I'm quoting now from a report from Economy Next. It says here, Sri Lanka's Securities and Exchange Commission has lost its reputation by failing to probe suspicious activity in 2010 and 11 and is taking steps to rebuild its effectiveness. So says an International Monetary Fund assessment. To discuss this very matter and the state of the stock exchange and especially the regulation of that stock exchange is a person who was very much in the hot seat during that very same period, 2010 to 11. And he's right here with us this evening, Mr. Malik Kader. Very good evening to you, Mr. Kader.
Good evening, Faraz. It's nice to be here.
Nice to have you on the program. What was your role in 2010 at the SEC then?
Well, 2010, 2011, I was the Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission of Sri Lanka.
Right.
And well, that was a time where the markets actually were taking off after a 30-year-old war.
Yes.
A market that was suppressed was simply taking off. And there were loads of issues in that taking off because the market within a very short period of time, the indexes rose from 1,500 to about 6,000 and sometimes even 7,000. So it's a 400% rise.
For no earthly reason?
Well, there were certain counters which are depressed,
Right.
which saw natural value of it. Up to a point, there was value.
Okay.
But after that, there were a certain segment of people who got into the bandwagon and necessarily manipulating the market. Like for no reason, you could see company shares moving from 10 rupees to 150 rupees.
We're talking very much about the pumping and dumping period.
Yes. Actually, the market was fairly very well manipulated, and then there were issues in the market.
So what were you doing? Why weren't you acting?
Well, we were starting to do our job of work. We had
so
a very,
what did y'all do?
we had a very strong commission at that time. We had a very strong chairman with us at that time. It was a no-nonsense commission, and all issues pertaining to market manipulation and issues that cropped up during that period were about to be investigated.
Right.
Okay, so what we did was, for us, we started investigating some of the basics, because while investigations are done, you start with the bottom.
Okay.
Right? We were just on the verge of summoning some of these people for questioning when the problem started.
And what was the problem?
The problem was, I don't think a lot of people liked what we were doing. We were simply doing our job.
So doing your job also meant that you brought in various handbrakes.
Yes.
I remember you had some sort of moratorium on it. You put a share price on hold, trading on hold if it went more than 10% or something like that in a day.
Well, we did all that for the benefit, because our main mandate was investor protection.
Investor protection.
That's the main mandate of this regulator, right?
But equally, Mr. Kader, isn't the whole essence of a stock market that it's driven by sentiment? It doesn't necessarily reflect a true value of a share.
No, I disagree with you on that.
Okay.
Right? There has to be some element of fundamentals, right? That is there in a price.
Okay.
A price cannot be artificially 10 times more than it used to. It should be.
Okay.
Right.
So in a situation,
in a situation like that, if an innocent investor buys these shares, a lot of people bought these shares at those prices.
Yeah.
And what happened? When the prices came down.
They came down because the stocks were dumped.
That's the thing. That's the thing. So that's the very reason. That is the very
They were
reason.
dumped from the top.
From the top. So that's the very reason we brought these controls
Right.
to the market. We also said, right, where credit is concerned,
Yeah.
you have to substantiate, right, your background to credit before entering into any credit agreement, because there were people who didn't have 10 rupees in the pocket, right, who were trading at 200, 300 million for a month.
Wow.
Okay, so that's the time of
So how did you control that? You put some brakes on?
not breaks. We said no. If you want to purchase stocks in the market, you have to bring money.
Right.
Right. If you don't have money, you go to a credit provider.
Right.
And get your credit.
Like a bank.
Yes, get a credit. Take credit.
But you also forced the brokers to separate the lending
Yes,
arm
yes.
to a separate company.
Yes, there has to be firewalls. So
Right.
those are the firewalls, because if not, they pull the whole thing together.
Right.
They pulled the whole. So we did a lot of good things, and I think now people realize the good things we have done. And you could see when you go to a broker, well, if a check is payment is not there the next within the stipulated period,
Yeah.
well, they basically pounce on you.
Okay.
Right? Good old days, that wasn't there.
Right.
They had a lot of people had a free ride.
A lot of people had a free
Free
ride.
ride, yes.
Who was it costing money to? Who was the ultimate loser?
Ultimate loser was the investor, unsophisticated investor,
Right.
who was basically, maybe some people would have been
Who was
duped,
basically encouraged to invest.
encouraged to invest by basis some investment advisors who were not doing the right thing, right? And as a result of that, they put all their money in, and at the end of the day, right?
But at the same time, that is a period when share ownership was quite widespread.
Yes.
It was successful in that remit.
Yeah,
if you
in
like.
that remit, yes, but it was not done in a proper manner. Right? People who have burned their fingers are never going to cite the capital markets or the stock market again, because they had very bad experiences. So that eroded,
Yeah.
for us, the investor confidence.
At the time, it went up to 7,000, and maybe I think even 8,000.
7,000, yeah,
Yes.
just
Now,
below 8,000.
what did you think was and now today we are just under the 7,000 mark?
No, we are
Sorry, under the 6,000 mark.
we are just above 5,000 mark.
Yes.
Right.
So is that a natural level? Is that a level in which these shares reflect closer to the actual value of these shares?
There were some analysts who had done some work during that period. Now I'm referring to 7 or 8 years ago.
Right.
And their predictions were that the market should have been healthy
Yeah.
at about 6,000.
Okay.
Not 7,800. So 6,000 to 7,800 was not a very healthy situation.
Right.
For us, just hypothetically take this. If the market was healthy at 6,000 in 2010, that's about 9 years ago.
Yeah.
Just imagine, look at the growth potential of the Colombo Stock Exchange. It grew by about 25%. I'm not trying to say that it should have grown 25 from 2010 to 2019,
No.
but there would have been some growth, right? Taking into consideration the investor perception.
Even if the global economies have been suffering for the last 7 years?
For us, the Colombo market has been resilient right throughout,
Right.
because we are a small market.
Okay.
We are a small market. Our market should have been definitely, I wouldn't want to say how much, but definitely a lot more than 6,000.
Right.
And that would have helped the economy of the country as well.
Then why do you think? Is it because of the loss of sentiment?
Loss of
confidence?
sentiments, investor confidence was lost as a result of that. And furthermore, this particular article reflects that very well.
Yeah.
From 2010 onwards, up to now, you would have asked any sane professional
Yeah.
during that period whether the market was all right. They would say the market is not all right. There's something wrong in the market. People are doing this and that.
Why? Because the shares are trading at so many
So
times.
it's not
above
only
par.
so, everyone, people knew who were manipulating the issues in the market, the investigations, that kind of stuff. Up to now, we have had no investigation,
So-
no successful prosecution that has been levied against any one of these people.
The
That is
chairperson
exactly
at
what-
the time,
yeah.
Mrs. Sugurdasa,
Yeah.
was she left office of her own volition.
Yeah, she left office soon after I had an unceremonial exit as a senior advisor to the Ministry of Finance.
So you were shifted from the SEC to the Ministry of Finance.
Okay. My shifting to the Ministry of Finance as a senior advisor, being the Director General, having served the SEC for almost 15 years, had absolutely no reason for me to be shifted.
Apart from
there was absolutely no reason for me to be shifted. For instance, if there was an inquiry against me, fine, I would have understood that it's justified for them to shift me there. But I consider even now that because we were doing our job, we were going behind these errant investors who were manipulating the market.
Were they politically exposed?
They were highly politically exposed. The moment we started the first investigation, we felt the jitters into us. For us, we felt the jitters, and that is when all these problems started. They were gunning at the SEC. They were gunning at me personally, and they wanted me out of office for very glorified reasons of them.
Well, sorry, excuse me. So you were moved.
I was moved. And when I was moved, I think Mrs. Sugatadasa went right to the top and said they wanted her to move me out. And then she said, okay, I have no problem in moving me out, if you all say, you're the big bosses of this place. But on one condition, you might need to tell me a justifiable reason as to why I should move him out of the SEC. For that, I must give credit to her that she's a
and
type
what
of
did the
iron
president
lady.
say?
Well, I'm not sure whether he said it or not, but
somebody.
Somebody,
Somebody with authority.
But perhaps that person also got wild when she said that. That she was not very happy, at the response given by the chairperson at that time. So after 2 weeks of my going into the Ministry of Finance, unceremonially, I think on a matter of principle, she left and a couple of commission members also left. We also had a very strong commission.
But we had then the appointment of Dr. Nalaka Godaheva soon after that.
Yes.
He was put in, but he was one of those people who were featuring in various sort of investigations.
Yes. I saw a couple of reports as well in the newspapers, in interviews, that he was also one of those, perhaps, which was.
He was named in the newspapers.
I cannot confirm because I don't have documents to that. He was named in the newspapers.
He was named by the newspapers, and he in fact gave a statement to the effect that he would not be trading in any of his shares whilst he was in the office, holding his position as the head of the SEC. We don't know whether he actually did, but I'm sure that the people who are investigating will find out. But was it a bit of a joke putting somebody who was in the thick of things to be at the helm of the SEC?
For us, Sri Lanka is a small country, You need to pick and choose from a very small basket which is available. But you have a point in what you say. You need to examine all these. We have previously also, we had a chairman of listed companies who were chairman of the SEC.
But we do also have these people who were clearly politically exposed persons. For example, Dr. Nalaka Godaheva has been named, and he features in a court case that is connected with his work as the head of the SEC. That's ongoing. But my point here is that he was in charge. The newspapers, the media had reported various sort of matters about him, and Then you find that he's appointed to the SEC, and sometime later, in 2015 onwards, we find that he's been charged for some matter connected during his work at the SEC.
Correct, yes.
So what I'm trying to say is that we ended up with somebody who clearly had some question to him.
Right.
Now, on the same score, we then, let's fast forward, 2015, we had the appointment of an aged gentleman, Tilak Karunaratne, as the head of the SEC. When he inherited it, there were so-called 14 or 16 files. These were probably the files that in your term, in your time, and in Mrs. Sugadadas's time, you all were trying to investigate. And then it sort of died an almost natural death, almost, and only to be revived by the good governance team in 2015. But sadly, despite Mr. Karunaratne actually coming on Newsline as well, I think on 2 occasions, where he gave us definitive timelines to look at those files. I seem to think it was 16 or 14 or 16, but they were in the double-digit numbered files, and nothing has happened. He's now retired. I don't really know what he's achieved, apart from perhaps a draft of a new SEC bill.
Right. For us, you have some very valid points in saying all those things. You're right in saying I wouldn't want to confirm whether it's 14 or 16 files, but there were files.
But there were files.
Right? And those files, some of those files which were investigated and looked by us, and there was definitely some open and shut cases.
Right.
What is sad to see in this whole thing is none of these things went forward.
Yeah.
In a court,
Yeah.
right, these perpetrators would have got out. That's a different thing, right? But at least there should have been some element of prosecution, right, which the authorities should have taken, which would have given a lot of confidence to the investing public of this country. What is sad is up to now, everyone knows what happened in 2010, 2011. Everyone knows, right?
Yeah.
That the general public, every professional would have known what took place in 2010 and 2011 in the market. But up to now, there isn't a single prosecution, right, in the courts that has been taken forward as a result of this. Now that is the sad part, and that is what I think these documents you're reading from IMF and economy talking about. Those are things which are certainly not good for the confidence of the market.
So Sri Lanka's SEC, our stock market regulator's reputation has been shattered.
Right.
It's left in tatters.
Right.
And we've had Tilak Karunaratne, who's done nothing that we can say of any substance in terms of investigating and trying to restore the reputation of the SEC as a regulator. Just as much as safety is paramount for the tourism industry to boom, so is the safety and the stability of the market and the bona fides of that market, and that is done by the regulator. And when the regulator fails, well, so goes your reputation.
For us, the capital market regulator in any country, right, you cannot have just a person with some knowledge on investing in the market. You need to have people with certain amount of competencies.
What you mean, quite simply, is competence and professional people who know what they're doing.
That's right. You need to have, I mean, like even if you take an engineer or doctor, he's professionally qualified, you can't put him as a chairman of the SEC. You need a man with certain amount of knowledge on the subject, right? A person who knows the capital market, who has studied the capital market. Because this is...
There's no space there for political patronage or anything like that.
There isn't. You need to have competent, professionally qualified people on the subject to be there running the place, because That is a key. That is a key to it.
But why has market sentiment just disappeared?
Well, with all these things for us from 2010, there are people who are disgruntled about the market, taking the locals into consideration. There are some counters which are doing very well, companies are doing very well. Foreign investors basically are not as active as they used to be, right? So we need to call all these people back into the market, instill confidence to them, and then take the market forward. One other area is, I don't think we have given that amount of concentration or importance to the market for us. We need to give it much more space than we have.
What is lacking?
What is lacking is our market size is very small.
So we need to see more.
We need to see the market getting bigger. There has to be innovation that has to come.
What are you suggesting? Shall we privatize the electricity board, the water board?
We need to be innovative. It's a very political thing when you're trying to say privatize, right? Yeah. But we need to bring efficiencies into this whole system. We need to grow our market. We need to grow our market.
But they said the same thing a long time ago in Britain, and until Mrs. Thatcher decided to sell the family silver. So they had the gas companies and all the utility companies, the British Airways, been privatized, gone on the stock market. So it does have its plus points.
Yes, it all depends on the people who run it. So yeah. It depends on good governance, right? You have the right people in the right place.
But it appears now. What do you say? We see now an announcement that the EPF funds are re-entering the stock market. Is that a good thing, bad thing, mediocre?
For us, the markets have dipped. The valuations in the markets, if you ask me right now, are looking pretty good, right? So if proper analysis is done, and if the EPF feels that these counters are going to take off in about a year or two, because prices are extremely too good to believe.
But how about public sentiment when it comes to the EPF? Because clearly they were mismanaged.
Yeah, but for us, you also have to remember EPF also will have to invest money.
Yeah.
They can't be investing all the money simply in, there has to be a big basket for them.
Yes.
They can't invest only in the government securities.
What percentage do you think they would be safe to invest in?
I mean, not the whole,
market?
for 10-15% is a lot.
Right.
10-15% is a lot.
Huge.
It's huge. But that will give a huge boost to the market. But it doesn't mean that they have to go and...
But is it safe to invest 10 or 15% of the public's hard-earned retirement funds?
For us, that's a call the professionals there in the central bank and the EPF will have to take.
But what about public sentiment? Public sentiment is not very good with these people because you remember the bond and
yes.
remember all the monies that have been made. And the EPF, the courts calculated it, or the commission calculated it at about 8,500 million avoidable loss there.
Right.
And when you do the sums, and if you were to recover that from the perpetrators, that doubles. So 17 billion at 12% per annum, that's 5 million rupees per day. That's how much we are missing at the EPF.
You have a very valid point in what you say for us, but that should not preclude, right, the EPF looking at opportunities for the betterment of their...
Do we have enough controls?
That's right, if we have enough controls...
We had lousy excuses from them. Yeah. Like he had a stomachache, he stayed at home, that's why he didn't participate in the primary level of the bond purchases.
So with proper controls, I think you need to give the EPF holders the benefit of it with proper control, because if basically they could take about 25-30% benefit from the market, why should not that be?
But wasn't it a bubble waiting to be burst at that time when the stock market was booming?
No, so that is what. So there should have been control at that time.
Right. Right. So your handbrake controls, like the 10%.
Yes. We actually put those controls for that.
Right. So those work.
Yes, those work because we said 10%. per day, and once it moves into a certain counter, right, it's flagged as a risky stock. Right, but you could still buy it, right? But you have to buy it for cash.
Okay.
We said if you want to buy it, okay, that's risky. It's flagged that risky, right? But if you still feel you want to go in for it, well, you pay cash, put your money. That's right, yes. So those are the controls. We bought fairly good controls, right?
You were accused at the time of stymieing the market sentiment.
Yes, that's right. Yes. We tried to only save the market.
But the politicians of the day were not happy with it.
They were not happy. They wanted us out because they knew what we were trying to aim at.
But surely, isn't it true now in opposition that they point to the present conditions and say, well, look, if it was us, the market would be moving?
I don't think the market...
No controls, but it was moving.
No, I don't think you can't play about with markets for us.
You certainly can't play about with the public's monies.
Yes, that's right. You can't play with the market. And you saw what happened. You see, they took prices up. It had to come down. It had to come down to its realistic position. And it came.
So today, the stocks are trading closer to home than before?
Yeah, it's below home than before. I gather it's slightly below home than before.
I see.
Yeah,
so
but it's a good time, even for foreign investors. Prices are looking very attractive, right, to get into the market. There is no better time than this. You're looking at a very long-term horizon, 2 to 3 years. This market is good.
In your opinion, what would foreign investors look for?
For us, foreign investors will look for a lot of stability. So it has to come from policy. You cannot change things overnight.
But the exchange rate is running.
Yeah, but that's no control. Foreigners would not have a control on that.
No, but they'd look at that.
Yeah, they will look at that. Now, for instance, let me tell you about, I had a client of mine who were basically building apartments.
Right.
Maybe 6-7 years ago. They brought tons of money, right, and investing here and putting up apartments, right? Look at the policy. All of a sudden, our policymakers saw apartments coming up, right? And what did they do? They slammed a 15% tax.
But they spot profits, and so then they tax them.
For us, when the foreign investors came here, they factored all those things, right?
Okay.
They didn't factor the 15% we are talking about right now.
Okay.
They're not going to come again here because our policy is not consistent. We need to have a consistent policy, right? Not a policy where we overnight, right, have taxes put in. Foreigners will run away.
Do you think people at the Ministry of Finance understand all this?
They should understand, and hopefully they should have people.
But if they should, they wouldn't have done what they did.
Quite right, but they have done it. Hopefully in the future they will look at all these things before making a call. So for foreign investors, you need consistency.
What chances? I see the market is littered with people who have fallen down on hard times. Several brokers aren't there anymore.
Yep, quite right.
Unemployment amongst that community is quite high.
Quite right. You have a point. I think about 5 or 6 brokers are basically, they have not closed down, they have put their license on the shelf. Right. Someday they come, they can open it up, right? Because I don't think the business environment is very conducive for them to come in at this moment. But I'm very hopeful for us.
What do you think 21.4 did to our market?
21.4 basically contributed to the current situation we are in.
Is that the final nail in the coffin?
Not the final nail. I wouldn't say it's a final nail. There's a lot of hope, right? Provided our policymakers make the right call.
When do you think Sri Lankans will tire of having hope? Because everything we do, we are told to have hope.
For us, that day would be very soon, I believe, if the politicians take their hands off some of these things which are happening in the country. They should let the private sector take over. Government should not be in business.
What you're also saying, are you not, that we need professionals where professionals are needed?
Quite right. I think you said it very well.
So that is what we need, professionalism.
Professionalism.
Well, Malik Khalid, thank you ever so much for sharing your Friday evening with News First and Newsline Prime. We do appreciate it. Do come on one of our longer programs and tell us all about how we can revive this economy, which is so very dear to all of us.
Quite right.
Divide of caste, creed or race or whatever that is. Well, that's the way it was on Newsline Prime this evening. Do take care, have a wonderful weekend, and of course, God bless.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.